Because when people think of grief, typically it's a traumatic thing happens or someone passes away and it's a one-time occurrence. But as we found, it's actually more of a ripple effect. What are your findings?
Our program is specific grief support, grief because of a death. But you're right in terms of there being what we call secondary losses. So, for example, if a parent dies, the family's finances might change significantly, or that child might need to go live someplace else with a different family member. They may have to actually, move to another state. All of the other losses that come along with that initial loss are what our kids are dealing with.
Wow, and I'm so glad you said that. I don't even think I would have thought about that financial impact. And I'm sitting here with Dorothy Mockensturm, who is the executive director at Good Grief of Northwest Ohio.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about the work that you do here?
Sure. So we do support groups, peer-based support groups for children and teens. We work with kids from 4 to 18. We also have a young adult support group. And then we also support the adults that care for the kids that are in our program. So while the kids support groups are going on, the support groups for the adults are happening at the same time. And so what that does is essentially supports the entire family in their grief process.
Because grief looks different for everyone. At Good Grief, they focus on age-appropriate resources. And now changing the setup a little bit, sitting down here with Devin Tursky, who's the program manager here at Good Grief of Northwest Ohio. What does hands-on play or working through grief look like here?
Well, it comes in a lot of different forms. So I think mainly we use art. We can also use what we would call like an experiential task, which may just be some sort of activity, even game to promote conversation. And then I think you also have this sort of child-led play, which kind of gets into our puppets, our sand trays, our little kitchens.
How does that actually contribute to helping kids get through that sticky grieving process?
I think kids' main form of communication is play and activity. A lot of times we're seeing that they might not know the exact words to say to express how they're feeling, but instead we're seeing it through what they're creating or their movements, the conversations they're having through objects.
Kids grieve differently. It looks different in kids. So as adults, we tend to get there and stay there in terms of heightened emotional feelings. Kids can't do that. They can't maintain those high levels of emotions for long periods of time, so they pop in and out of it. And that can actually be kind of confusing to the adults around them. Like 1 minute a child is really drenched in grief, and the next minute they're ready to go outside and play. And parents will be confused by that sometimes, and we just assure them that that is the natural process for kids.
What tips do you have for whether it's themselves or their young ones on working through grief?
In a society that is profoundly adverse to talking about death and grief, sometimes it can be difficult to just feel comfortable acknowledging that you feel this way. And for kids, that can be particularly problematic because they may not have the words to explain these very complex feelings that they're having. Really, it's just being a supportive presence. We can't fix this. We can't take it away. But we can stand shoulder to shoulder while they're feeling what they need to feel to explore and express and feel validated in their grief. And that makes a difference.